Did Glanbia Performance Nutrition benefit from global pent-up demand, or is there something else at play here? So similar to a lot of these earnings breakdown content that I create, I am going to utilize recent 2021 quarter one earnings report, conference call, any other associated publicly disclosed information for Glanbia to not only give you guys an update on what's going on in their business, but more importantly, use that as a backdrop to provide a ton of strategic insights around the vitamins, minerals, and supplements category and other adjacent active nutrition categories. For those that are consuming this content on YouTube, I did provide some of the presentation slides to give you guys a little bit of a visual on some of the numbers that I'm going to be talking about. Let's jump into Glanbia's 2021 quarter one earnings. They had wholly owned revenues that were up 9.7% year over year on a like for like basis. What made up that number was that volumes were up 11.5%, but they did have some pricing pressure of 1.8%. Now, for those that might not be too familiar with the structure of Glanbia, they are made up by two wholly owned divisions. Let's cover Glanbia Nutritionals quickly first, because that is the side of the business that I don't particularly spend too much time on personally, even though it's extremely important to the overall business. Glanbia Nutritionals, which is made up of two subdivisions, the US cheese business and nutritional solutions. This division's revenue was up 7.9% year over year on a like for like basis from strong volume increases, but did have pricing pressure that was significant on the US cheese business. Growth strategy has been focused on protecting the house, which I'm talking about here, mostly the protein solutions, and they're expanding their core platforms through international innovation and hopefully some additional mergers and acquisitions that I'll kind of talk about later in this piece of content. And they're also focusing on sustainability, partnerships, and global reach. Now, the other division, the Glanbia Performance Nutrition division, those revenues were up 17.6% year over year on a like for like basis. This was coming from both strong pricing and volume increases. And while extremely strong, leadership did note on the call that about 1/3 of the volume growth can be attributed to inventory builds with their particular retailers. Now, as part of kind of the larger Glanbia Performance Nutrition Transformation program, they've again kind of adjusted the management structure and the reporting of their numbers. Instead of the recently instituted lifestyle and then sports nutrition on the North American side and then the international and direct-to-consumer side, them breaking those out in that way, they've actually changed this up into kind of what they used to have before with like the Americas and international. Now, why exactly did they change this again? There were some new hires that happened at Glanbia Performance Nutrition. So they now have a chief growth officer, which is still going to be focused on a very brand by brand perspective. And then they hired a chief commercialization officer, and that person is going to be involved on decisions around channel strategy. So this is really a functional move. This is a maturation in the business just to align themselves correctly. But the Americas region includes all markets in North and Latin America, with the international business including all other geographic markets. Both regions have integrated leadership teams to drive growth and performance focused on markets, categories, and channels. Glanbia Performance Nutrition's direct-to-consumer business has a centralized organization that manages the platform for the Body and Fit brand, as well as supporting a number of Glanbia Performance Nutrition's brand.com e-commerce websites globally, providing further e-commerce direct-to-consumer capability to support local market teams in Glanbia Performance Nutrition's fastest growing channel. The Americas makes up 69% of the total portfolio. There was positive pricing in this area of the business, and this stems from increased prices that were passed on by Glanbia in the second half of last year across all of their brands. There was also volume increases. This was broad-based across a number of channels, and COVID-19 reopening and ease restrictions of certain channels helped as well. International, which makes up 31% of the portfolio, the Asia Pacific market had strong volume growth. Europe was still modestly down year over year, and a lot of this is coming from COVID-19 headwinds. There were price improvements that were broad-based, as these followed what the Americas market did with pricing increases in the second half of last year. The e-commerce channel was a key driver of growth across the international business and an integral component of market development in many important regions across owned direct-to-consumer websites as well as third-party online retailers. While there is more than a handful of brands in the Glanbia Performance Nutrition portfolio, it really has become a two-brand portfolio with almost 3/4 of Glanbia Performance Nutrition's revenue made up from Optimum Nutrition and SlimFast. Now, SlimFast did have consumption that was down about 0.5% as weight management and consumer mobility headwinds still are causing some pressure on the brand, but early indications into this current quarter have been positive. Now, Optimum Nutrition has seen strong performance overall within their tracked channels at a consumption gain of 23.6% year over year, and this strong performance has extended into early quarter two. Both the Optimum Nutrition brand and SlimFast are getting increased advertising spend and focus being put on them throughout the rest of the year, but despite them both getting a ton more attention, I think both of these brands are going in a different direction in terms of like over the next 5 years. I covered this extensively in the last video, some of my thoughts. If you haven't watched that one, I will pop that video up for you guys here to watch that. But because of their two largest brands kind of going in different direction, an important kind of correlated point with my opinion is that Glanbia's capitalization has continued to stay strong. You had net debt ratio, which is down considerably. They've completed a $60 million share buyback plan. They have operating cash flow generation that is ahead of schedule from their restructuring plan, and a weighted average maturity date of debt that is 4.6 years out. So what does this all mean? Outside of increased CAPEX spending, Glanbia really should be getting quite aggressive with mergers and acquisitions targets. Now, there's definitely going to be some opportunities for more bolt-on mergers and acquisitions activity on the nutritional solutions business, both from adding capabilities and coming from geographically based targets. On the Glanbia Performance Nutrition side, they're going to be looking for things like diversification of their protein sources. They're very heavy on dairy or animal-based proteins right now, so they're going to be looking for a target that is very strong in plant-based proteins. They might be looking for anybody that can help with the acceleration of their digital shift, so somebody that has a huge share of their business coming from direct-to-consumer and some of the online marketplaces, and probably more importantly has a strong team involved that can be kind of utilized as like an acqui-hire for Glanbia to kind of bring them in and elevate the online direct-to-consumer business across all of their brands. They also are going to need to make sure that these businesses are probably more mature and have stronghold and the ability to create sales velocity in some of the larger channels like food, drug, mass, and convenience. They're going to need to have meaningful business outside of the ready-to-mix powders, even though that has been extremely resilient and Glanbia has a ton of business there and this has been a stronghold for them. I think they're going to need to make sure that whatever target they go after does have some ready-to-eat options, or probably even more importantly, ready-to-drink options. Now, why have we not seen any deals yet from Glanbia on the Glanbia Performance Nutrition side? First of all, big consumer packaged goods brand portfolios have been really interested in making deals within like the health and wellness market. Within the last 30 days, you've seen a ton of really big deals coming from Mondelez that bought Grenade. You also have Unilever that bought Onnit, and then Nestle made two large acquisition announcements with the Bountiful Company, which is almost a $6 billion acquisition, and then just even more recently with Noon, a hydration focused brand. Now you also have a lot of money on the sidelines from private equity, venture funds, things like incubators and special purpose acquisition companies that are looking to make deals within some of the attractive categories of functional CPG. Now I've thrown a ton of different ideas in terms of who potentially Glanbia could look at to acquire. Again, that's going to be in the previous piece of content that I had on Glanbia. Make sure you guys click back and watch that if you're interested in hearing some of those names. But just to kind of throw a little bit of a different idea out there that Glanbia has not talked about at all, and that I think they are overlooking, is that they're going to need to position themselves and their portfolio really towards the future of what this industry could look like. And that's going to be towards personalized nutrition and just the capabilities that are going to need to be done from a manufacturing standpoint, maybe from a technology standpoint, to really get them to really position themselves for that future. So it might not be a case where there's a brand available at a price point that makes sense to just acquire wholly, but I think there is going to be opportunities for them to get in on some different rounds of funding, maybe incubate, maybe help from a strategic standpoint, investment, so they can get access to this nascent market with the names that are attacking it and the most close to the fire. I want to end on some final thoughts. While the COVID-19 effect really did kind of challenge Glanbia throughout 2020, the well-timed transformation plan and the improving environment around long-term secular trends should make the company stronger for the future. That being said, problems still lie on recalibrating the Glanbia Performance Nutrition brand portfolio, and one that they're going to have to address head on in the next year if they want to sustain their market leadership against large CPG portfolios like Nestle, Unilever, and Mondelez. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.